All right, Nevada Realtors. I'm Chris Bishop, your 2020 Nevada Realtors president. You remember seeing me on video before because that's about how my presidency went.
You're back.
I'm back. So I'm honored today to be here with our current Nevada Realtors president, Mr. Tom Blanchard. And this is the first video of It's Not Soup Yet. I get paid extra every time I say it. There is a clause in my contract, but yeah, so I'm here with Tom, and Tom is preparing for his legislative session his year as president, and we're already 3 days in to that session. And Tom, how you feeling?
So far, so good, right? We still don't know what little demons are out there that they'll come up with as far as some bills that be brought to the floor. But you know, this being the first one, there's not much to talk about as far as bills, although there have been some already filed prior to the session. But right now, it's sort of a lot of pomp and circumstance.
For sure.
And I want to sort of help educate those of you out there regarding the how a bill becomes law. And we all remember the Schoolhouse Rock. Those that are old enough, I'm probably showing my age.
That was years before my time.
Yeah,
so.
But just in case, at the end of this, we'll play that little ditty for you. So it's a catchy tune. But let's go through the process of literally how a bill becomes a law, and how a legislator gets some idea, be it from a constituent or their own idea, and they write out basically a bill draft request that says, I want to change something.
A law or code or
I want to change something.
And I think what people don't really understand about that is a lot of the changes that we've seen are legislators who had a real estate related issue, either with someone that they dealt with in a transaction, something that happened to a family member, and it seems to take something that's a small issue in the way that it seems, and because it happened to someone that they know or something that they're related to, they really got in depth into it. And sometimes the path for good intentions doesn't lead where we believe it will. And so I want to step back just a minute before we go into the actual bills. I think a lot of people need to understand that your year as president for your session started last year. And you started working with your legislative team, Keith Lynham, your legislative chair, to prepare for the session, and our great lobbying team at Carrera, Nevada. Tell us a little bit about the preparation leading into it.
Well, again, there's always an opportunity every other year to help make sure that realtor champions get elected.
Sure.
Right? And you don't know how a realtor champion is, if they are a realtor champion, unless you have some conversations with them about what their thoughts are. And we've done that over the last year. Is we interviewed everybody, or most everybody that would be willing to come in and talk to us about what their ideas were. And we talked about realtor issues, whether it be landlord law, tenant law, all those items. And hopefully they were honest with us and just didn't say that they thought we wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And we had those conversations, and we helped those that we thought would be good realtor supporters of our issues.
So what you're saying though is that I noticed during the previous sessions we would talk with a lot of legislators, and they would ask our opinion on real estate and how it works and the intricacies of our business. But sometimes they just don't process it the way we do as practitioners. And so what I was amazed by the program is that we put actual realtors or industry partners, as we refer to them, lenders or title reps or people in some part of our industry, into the actual legislative session so that they can relay that information firsthand to their fellow legislators.
Yeah, I mean, during the session, there's a lot of talk between legislators.
Sure.
And sometimes when you're a legislator, you only get who comes in your door from the lobbyists and stuff, and you don't always take their talking points with a grain of salt.
Yeah, of course.
But yet you talk to another legislator who's been in the business and can provide them with the background and the insight, and it's a little bit more acceptable and can change more minds that way. So it was very important that you guys provided that kind of effort and put the money behind it to have people get elected. And I commend you. So I think it was during your year, or Keith's year.
Yeah, I'd love to take credit for it, but it was an absolute joint venture with everybody. I mean, it was a great idea that came up. Keith Line has been talking about it for years, and we were able at the end of his term and the beginning of mine to put the actual process in place. But I think what's really impactful is it's harder to find great candidates.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to say, well, we'd love to put candidates in Carson City that understand our issues, but then to ask someone to actually run and to go through the process, and it's not an easy one.
No, that is not.
It's very difficult, and so we have an entire gamut of amazing people that have stepped up. And I think the other thing is during the session, if there's those of you out there that feel that you would be a great legislator, the first step is to notify the association and get involved. And so they're always looking for candidates to go through that process. But one of the other things I think that was really interesting about the comments you made is that people relate to those that are around them that they see, and people forget that our legislators are not full-time politicians.
Right.
All of them have another job that they work when the session's not there, and they're part-time in it. And so these are real estate practitioners that work real estate full-time that are giving up their time and energy to be legislators. And so I think that gives them even more credibility when they're sitting there explaining those issues. So let's go back to the bills, right?
Yeah.
And
the process.
The process. And so you mentioned it. There's been almost 800 drafts that have already come forward, and we have a team, your LMT team, that's there reviewing these bills. Talk a little bit about what LMT is and what.
Right, and I'll back up even further. So we have a legislative committee that spent all last year helping interview and find those folks that are going to be realtor champions and our realtor party members,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then now that that's all been settled by the election, we have the folks that we're going to have to deal with.
Yep.
And they bring up the bill drafts. The bill drafts come and are noticed, and then
anyone can read these bill drafts, right? I mean, they're out there.
They're out there on the website from the Nevada State Legislative Session. But our LMT is a subgroup of the legislative team that goes through each and every single bill.
Wow. Yeah.
That has anything to do with real estate, whether it's water issues, you name it, it's in there, and we go through it and figure out whether we're going to support a bill, we're going to stay neutral on a bill,
sure,
or we're just going to remove it because it really had nothing to do
with real estate in general.
Right, and those decisions are important because that's what determines our lobbyists and provides them with their marching orders on what we want to do with those bills, and whether we're going to support something and talk good about it, or we're going to oppose something and talk negatively about it, about why you shouldn't do this because it's going to cause this problem.
A way to affect the industry, right? Absolutely.
But before that even happens, the bill drafts get written, and then they get introduced at the floor. And this is a tedious process, because a bill can start in the assembly or a bill can start in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And they each go through their process, and then they get switched over and start all over again.
Yeah.
Right. And that means
so committee meetings, public concern and sessions. I think that's the reason for the title of your podcast here. It's not soup yet. Yeah. And what I hear you say many times, and Keith Lynham as well, and Rocky Finseth, our lobbying manager, the owner of Carrera, is that there's a lot of process left to go. And we seem to have people overreact at the very beginning when something's not even a bill or a law.
And right now, I mean, in using the soup analogy, is we've just put some of the water into the pan, right, and are going to start heating it up a little bit before we start putting all the ingredients in. And there are so many steps, and there's four steps just on one house before they go over to the other house. Sure. And have those same 4 steps. And then additional, if they change things, coming together of both houses and trying to figure out something that's going to work for both houses, and then going back to be voted on again. So there's a lot of steps. There's a lot of places where things disappear,
Mhm.
right?
Bills change.
Right.
They don't make it
The majority leader can decide to not even have a bill, even though it's been brought as a bill draft, be even read
Mhm.
at the floor, which is the first step, right? So some bills disappear there. Some get read and get sent to a committee, and that committee chairperson can decide whether or not on their agenda
Sure.
to have that bill be heard again. So there's another place where bills can go and just disappear. And then if they are heard and they are talked about, and we have the opportunity to speak on it, or anybody does, on the bill for or against it at the committee meeting, and maybe amendments happen, a lot of those things, it's an opportunity for us to help soften or make something that sounds really harsh be more palatable.
Sure.
Maybe we can do a carve out an amendment that it doesn't include for or under single family residences or something like that. There's a lot of places there during the amendment part that allows us to sort of set out. So even though you have a bill that is so egregious and everybody's upset about it, and oh my God, the sky is going to fall down if this thing happens, and
Sure.
oh, we need call to action, we need all this. Call to actions are great, but it's the conversations that we have with those legislators that have written the bill, that are involved in the committee that the bill sits at, that we can have, and those committee members that we can have to help them
understand the issue.
Understand the issue and massage the bill so it's not so egregious, and everybody can come together and support a bill.
Yeah.
So there's all those steps just on the first half of it, and then it gets repeated when it gets over to the other side of the house, whether it be an assembly bill, which those bills will start with an AB, or the Senate bill, which starts with an SB. And again, when it switches over to the houses, again, they can disappear.
Yeah.
Right? So if it was an assembly bill, they don't have to be heard over on the Senate side. It may stop.
It's not soup yet.
It's not soup yet.
Well, I think the group that's listening to us probably would want to know how they can be supportive of the session. And so one of the things we've always said is that we speak with one voice. The idea behind that is, if as an industry we're trying to convince a legislator of the right path or the wrong path with a bill, if there's too many voices in the same room saying different things, it's confusing and it causes that issue. And so we're trying to make sure that you have the message of what's going on. I think your intent with this podcast is to bring forward a number of the issues that come before the session, talk about a number of the bills that are in front of you. But again, none of this is soup yet.
Yep.
And so definitely you're going to enjoy the video of how a bill becomes a law, and Tom saw it in kindergarten. But the other things that are out there is the advocate.
Right.
So Carrera and Nevada Realtors prints out a newsletter that happens every single week, I believe, that gives an update on the session and things that are in front of the session, if there's a call to action or any of those items. So definitely make sure that you're receiving that. And
I'll bring up a great thing about that. The advocate comes out every Friday,
Yeah.
and it's emailed out to those that have not opted out
don't opt out anymore.
at their local association. So for those of you that thought that we got too many BS emails, and I get it, our email stuff gets stacked with stuff. This might be the time for you to undo the fact that you unsubscribed and say that you want to opt in receiving this, so that you can get the advocate that goes over all the bills that we're watching.
Sure.
And have that, because let's face it, this might be the one piece of email that you get that is important if you care about it, right? If you don't care about it, well then, keep going on your business.
But you're so right, because a lot of agents will ask, why did we change the RPA? Why did we change a listing agreement? My client's in the middle of a transaction where they're developing a piece of property, and if it happens during a session and a law changes, the use of that property could actually change. And so, what I would tell any agent that's out there is that, if real estate is your profession, politics is your business, right? And that's a famous statement from many of our seasoned veterans in the real estate industry. But I've seen things happen in the session that directly affect the way I practice as a realtor, and so it's imperative that you stay in front of this information now that you have so many ways to get it. Tom, leading in the next week or 2 weeks before we're here talking about more soup, tell us what we can expect over the next couple of days and what we should be looking for.
Well, and let me back up one thing also about speaking with one voice. It is a politician's dream to have someone from a section of the community, like realtors, have one person say this and another person say that, because that means they're not on the same page.
Sure.
Therefore, they don't need to make up their mind, right? So they're just going to go with whatever happens.
Lessens the value of the message.
Right,
Sure.
and it gives them an out, right? Oh, I can't vote against it because I got other realtors saying that it's a good thing, or I can't move the bill forward because I got realtors saying on the other side that it's not good. So having one voice provides it gives no leeway for the politicians to wiggle out of doing the right thing that we feel is necessary. And I know I was one of the AB 384s back in the foreclosure times where
you were a squeaky wheel.
I was one of those squeaky wheels, and I provided some contrary viewpoints of what the realtors were trying to do because I felt they were in the wrong, and I happen to be right, but that's irrelevant because the bill still went through, and we were able to fix it down the road. And for those people that feel that we may be going down the wrong path, is let us know.
Yeah.
Right? Let us know so that we can have that conversation. Let Keith Lynham know. Let me know. Email me. Call Keith. And so that we can have that conversation so that we don't have a messy message.
I think
it's horrible.
That's very powerful that you say that, because we are a membership-driven organization, and we're members that listen. And so, if you do see something on a bill that doesn't make sense, that may have been missed. I mean, we have dozens of eyes that are looking over this, multiple legal opinions that are over these things. Sometimes something does get missed, and so it's a great point that they should contact you. The other thing I really like is you were the squeaky wheel.
Yeah.
I remember during that session, they were cursing your name in the membership halls, and instead of taking it on the chin, you got involved.
Yep.
And now you're sitting here leading us in this session as our president. And I think that's a powerful message.
And it's one that everybody should understand that, look, we are so much more powerful, and I'm one that learned this lesson. We are so much more powerful when we all are walking the same way.
Yeah.
And there's room for the discussion and the messy talk of differing opinions amongst ourselves, right? And I honor that. I cherish that. It's important because we don't always have the right answer, or we're not always looking at things through the different viewpoints.
Mm-hmm.
And having that conversation is so important. But it's important to have the conversation where it's not laid out in the political foray, but to have those backroom discussions that need to happen and provide those things so that both sides, if you're on a different side of something, understand each other. And trust me, I'm one that is all open to hear the other side.
Yeah.
I just ask for the ability to give my side of something, you give your side of something, and have us understand that we can disagree without being mean to each other. without, going on Facebook and saying, oh, what a jerk so-and-so is, or this or that we see so way too regularly
Sure.
in social media. So let's have those discussions. Let's have those private discussions and make sure that we walk forward with intent and ability to provide the message for those politicians to do what we think is the right thing to do.
Tom, you paint the picture of a beautiful world. I can't wait to see it. So, well, that's about all the time we have for this week. We'll be back next week with some special guests and more information. But again, make sure that you're getting the advocate. Make sure that if you see something, say something during the legislative session, and our state president is here to listen. And so, Tom, thank you for being here, and thank you for all you're doing as our state president.
Look, thank you for being a part of this and doing this. And for those of you that want a little nostalgic view, when we get done with this, we're not quite done. There's a great little clip.
I can't wait.
Of Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a Bill. I'm only a Bill sitting on Capitol Hill. So watch that. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, please email me at tom@signaturenv.com, and we'll talk to you next week.
And remember, it's not soup yet.
It's not soup yet.